Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Are you ready for chapter 14? Truffle Hunter is here today to talk about new religious movements. So we're going to talk about it in our World Religions textbook. Meet me in chapter 14 and we will get started, friends. So this is the final chapter in the textbook. Sorry about the cat tail. It's the final chapter. So meet me on page 538. 538. So what is a new religious movement? A new religious movement is a religious movement that has begun in the 18th to 20th century. So we abbreviate them by calling them NRMs. NRMs. There are 14,000 new religious movements. Many of them you're familiar with, and some of them you probably had not heard of. And so as you go through the book, what you will discover, and I'm on page 539, is that NRMs are often a response to something. And so they are often a response to globalization, modernization, science, diversity, multiculturalism, all kinds of things that we talked about in chapter 1. And so NRMs are often birthed out of existing traditions, particularly Abrahamic traditions. You'll notice that many of the NRMs in chapter 14, Truffle Hunter likes NRMs a lot, are birthed out of Christianity, actually. So things like Seventh-day Adventists, the Church of Christian Science, those are NRMs that come directly out of broader umbrella traditions like Christianity. So I'm on page 539 and 540. So that explains why NRMs come into being. So be sure to read over that section. And then let's talk about the type of NRMs. So now I'm on page 542. So Melton's 8 families. So what scholars have done is try to categorize all of these 14,000 NRMs. And you can imagine that that's very difficult to find threads that weave through each of them in such a way that you could organize them. But Melton, a scholar, a world religion scholar, comes up with 8 families of NRMs. And those are on page 542. The Latter-day Saint family, the communal family, New Thought metaphysical family, spiritualist psychic family, ancient wisdom groups, magical family, Eastern family, and Middle Eastern family. So feel free to take a look through those. What those do is they help you categorize the NRMs. This video is a hot mess. But hey, it's the last chapter. We got this, y'all. We got this. All right, there's a timeline on 544. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is probably one that you're also familiar with, also an NRM that comes out of Christianity. That is on page 545. You have probably heard of Seventh-day Adventism. You've probably heard of Jehovah's Witnesses. You have probably heard of Christian Science. These are just to name a few. Later on in the book, there's Rastafarianism. There is Nation of Islam, Hare Krishna movement, the Moonies. So again, there's no shortage of NRMs. But what you need to know that's really important is that many NRMs emerge out of already existing global world religious traditions. In other words, if you have the big 5, and you know the big 5 by now, what are they? I'm listening. Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. So they often emerge out of these already existing ancient traditions. So there's quite a few that you're going to be very interested in as you read through. What's difficult about chapter 14 is that we could literally spend an entire semester on chapter 14. There are so many traditions. But what I advise you to do is to study Melton's 8 families that we just went over, to study the glossary in the back. I'm going to go over that in just a minute. And also, just for your own personal enrichment, read through these and see which ones speak to you. And I don't mean that speak to you in that you would want to convert to them. I mean, what do you find most interesting about this particular chapter? What are you drawn to in terms of which of Melton's families do you find most intriguing? Neo-pagan thought is on page 564, and afterwards Scientology, you've heard of, is towards the end of the chapter. Wicca is on page 569. Unitarian Universalists, so if we were still meeting in our seated classroom, you would have the experience of speaking with a Unitarian Universalist practitioner that I bring in. But Unitarian Universalism is fairly common in our part of the United States. There is a UU fellowship in Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill if you're interested in learning more about Unitarian Universalism. Baha'i is also a very interesting tradition. Fun fact, Dwight from The Office is a member of the Baha'i tradition. And then when we get to our conclusion on page 577, I encourage you to go back and read through that summary. Ultimate reality, way of life, and ultimate purpose. You do not need to memorize specifics on this one. What I want you to know is that NRMs are typically a response to something that's happening within society, something that's happening within religious traditions, something that's happening in response to modernization. They are often a response to something and emerge out of a pre-existing religion, and or they emerge tangentially or in tandem with another tradition. All right, so let's look at the glossary. I'm on page 580. These are keywords to know for quizzes and exams. Engrams from Scientology, globalization, you already know that one from chapter 1. Let's see, modernization, you also know that from chapter 1. New Age, be familiar with that, please. Secularization, you know that from chapter 1 as well. Thetan, and also World Parliament of Religions would be a good one for you to remember. So those are just a few. Again, this is a very diverse chapter, and so we could literally spend a whole semester on this. And so I don't expect you to memorize every single detail of this chapter at all. What I'm looking for is broad strokes, just like what we've talked about. NRMs are typically a response to something going on in society, and they often emerge out of already existing traditions, and or there's a particular detail within the tradition, and then the NRM sort of spins off based on that detail. And as you go back and read through Melton's 8 categories, 8 families, that'll make more sense, okay? So read in depth and look at the PowerPoint, look at the unit. And friends, you are nearly there. I'm so proud of you. You are doing amazing. Truffle Hunter and I love you very much. We're proud of you and you got this. All right, take care.